I'm trying to radically sort of redefine and reframe how it is that we think about place and about landscape. It's less about this sort of framed vista in front of your eyes, in my way of thinking about it, and more about understanding what happened there, who lived there, the less visible aspect of the landscape that's residing right underneath the surface of what we look at and what we think we see when we describe a place. So some of the things that I was thinking about with this series had a lot to do with the idea of imagining 1491. So, for millennia before European contact, indigenous people shaped the land in very sophisticated ways. One of the ways that they did that was with slash and burn techniques. So they were basically making their own dirt, and they were making dirt that was very fertile. So the idea that I'm making these landscapes with pieces of the real landscape, because these are made from burned trees, there's this way of being in more than one place at once. And I often refer to this as stacked landscapes. I've created a kind of very expansive vocabulary with the charcoal itself as a material. And so in some places it's very velvety and powdery. In other places it's very earthy and chunky and has a kind of like more relief quality to it. And by doing that, I can kind of start to control, the movement of these geological formations. I really like to represent the night sky in my work, especially there's this theme of constellations or these points of light in the stars. They represent a kind of understanding of a place that is sort of untouchable, but that is also deeply connected to how human beings feel grounded and how they make sense of their own place in the earthly realm and in their everyday existence. What I'm asking viewers to do is to actually find themselves and to look for themselves in the landscape, and to be curious about their connection and their implied sort of like role within these social, political, and historic constructs. For me, the history of land is really the history of power. Who gets to be visible and who isn't visible. After 2016, there was a shift in some aspect of the work where I felt like there really wasn't the luxury to be subtle about images. I created this piece called Fire, United States of the Americas, and it was a huge charcoal map, basically, of what we think of as the United States. It's very strange to see these geometric shapes that are about domain and how land has been conquered and divvied up in these parcels that are very geometric and have nothing to do with the natural formations of the land itself. These works from paper are from a series that I started to do from my last exhibition called Maelstrom, which was all about the devastation of the Caribbean, and how really the Caribbean is thought of always in these very cliche ways, like resorts or paradise. But in fact, the Caribbean is like the initial point of colonization when you think of the Americas. And so it has a very loaded history because it really is like the center of the world in many ways. So some of these are made from images that I have photographed throughout the Caribbean. And it's basically the landscape abstracted. And so you'll see like forms that look like palm trees or foliage. but the image is made by burning. And so again, there's this connection between the destruction and the creation, and this sort of, I'd like to think that they have a kind of like redemptive quality, and that the image is sort of emerging from the burning. There's a kind of beauty that I'm interested in teasing out of materials, and of taking something that you might be familiar with and, turning it into something ephemeral and soft and poetic. This is the part of my work that people really respond to, because there's a seductive aspect to it. Parados is a site-specific public artwork that I designed for the BAM Harvey Terrace in Brooklyn. The organic form of the artwork is taken from the meandering, ivy-covered brick walls that are so common throughout Brooklyn's urban landscape. I really imagine this whole terrace space as a completely immersive experience where viewers could be surrounded by the artwork and walk underneath it, and see their own reflections in the myriad foliage weave patterns, as well as on the underside of the canopy when they look up. And in this way, the piece is almost like a barometer that reflects everything and everybody, and really everything that's happening in the surrounding area on its changing surface. I often use a reflective surface, and usually this reflective surface is not like a straight-on mirror. It's distorted. When you think of Fata Morgana, you had like all the walkways in Madison Square Park, covered with these canopies of reflective metal. And when you stand underneath it, you become the shape of the things that you're looking at. We understand space and we understand places by being, the witnessing entity that inhabits it and moves through it. And this notion that landscapes are also by default places inside of us.